Hey y'all, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to check out another one of my videos. Today I'm very excited to be sharing with you guys a multiple looks and review on the new palette from Shroud Cosmetics, and it's a collaboration with BattyBean once again for the Hallobean palette. Now, if you've been around my channel or just around the indie beauty space for a while, you know that Shroud Cosmetics collabed with BattyBean a couple years ago for the It's Freakin Bats palette. BattyBean, or BettyBean, was called ButtyBean at the time, but they collabed on the It's Freakin Bats palette, and this was my #1 palette that came out that year. I just loved it so much. So when I saw that they were collaborating once again on a new palette, I was super excited, and honestly was just, I knew I was gonna buy it regardless of what it looked like. But then she opened it and it looked like this inside the Hallobean palette, and I thought she did a great job of putting this palette together. I was so excited. So I picked it up on launch day, and I was happy to see that this launch, for the initial launch of this palette, went a lot smoother than this one did. It's Freakin Bats palette, if you remember, it was really, I think it like sold out in like a minute or something. It was super fast. This one I think hung around for an hour or two before it sold out. It is sold out at this time, but they will be doing restocks. So anyway, this is what the palette looks like, and I was super excited to be able to pick it up on launch day. And now I'm sitting down to create a couple looks for you guys and just to share with you guys my review on this palette. I have done 3 looks with this, which I feel like I kind of got a good feel for the palette. I've been able to use every single shadow in here, so I'm ready to review it for you guys, but I do want to share all the looks that I created with this palette. The first look that I'm going to do is the one I'm wearing in this video right now, and it's going to be more of a talk through, laid back, and I'm gonna kind of talk about the palette quality and whatnot as they go along. And then the last 2 looks are going to be just music overlay, and I'm gonna do a speed up type of tutorial just so you guys can get more inspiration and just be able to see all 3 looks that I've created with this palette so far. And then we'll meet back here to give you guys my final review, my final thoughts on this palette at the very end of the video. So if that sounds good to you, why don't we just go ahead and jump right into the video and start with doing the first look, which is what I have on my eyes right now. Okay, so I've already done 2 looks with this palette, so I'm gonna try not to repeat. I want to play with this one again all over the lid, but I feel like that might be a tad bit repetitive. I use this with the green, so maybe I can pair it with more of the warm tones, but then I don't want it to be too, I don't know, I want the look to pop a little bit, and if it kind of blends into these darker tones, or these warmer tones, it might not really pop. But I think I might try this all over the lid, and then I might cut just the crease area with this to really make it pop and stand out. That's what I'm thinking of. So for the outer corner, I think I'm gonna go back into this shade. I've used it already, that's why I say go back into it, but I'm going to go into this shade. I'm going to pair it with, we're just going to start with this on the inner corner, blend out to this shade here, and then this is going to be my dark outer corner shade, and these 2 for the lid. That's what we're going to do. So let's dive right into that shade Wicked. I'm going to put it on my outer corner and just start to deepen it up. This shade is very nice and pigmented. Definitely doesn't take much to pack it on, and it's definitely a little more green leaning, whereas the other shade in here I would say is more of like a blue purple leaning. So they are different, even though they're very, very close in my opinion, to have these 2 such dark shades paired, you know, in the same little 9-pan palette. And then also just to have the 2 orange shimmers, but at least there are differences in them. I'm going to take it kind of, I'm not doing any kind of graphic cut, but this is a shape I'm going to be taking it, and I'm just putting a little bit more on this brush, and we're going to bring it in to hopefully help kind of cut out and make this look pop, just like that. I think that looks really nice. Nice and smooth. This shade feels a bit dry, like if you like touch it with your finger and feel it, but as you can see, like using it in packing motions, it packs on really nice, very easy. Okay, and then now that that's down, we're gonna go into, what did I say? I think I said Crypt. I'm gonna put that on the inner portion, and let's just see how that looks. This palette, I think as much as I like really loved how like autumnal it was with the oranges and whatnot, that warmth, and the shimmers look pretty, there was a pop of green, it's definitely a little bit more of like a neutral palette when you really get into it and playing with it. I feel like trying to think of ways to pair these colors together to make them pop is a little bit more difficult for me to do than with her first palette. Like with her first palette, I just felt like it was so, like the color combinations and the color choices and the way you could pair them together always led to such distinct and different and interesting type of looks, whereas this one is a little bit more, as I've been playing around with it, it's not as unique of a color story. I'm not saying this in any way to like be mean or nitpick the palette, it's just something I've noticed as I've been playing with it. And using it by itself, it's like, okay, like I feel like, you know, a lot of these looks, since it's more neutral, maybe a neutral warm tone with the oranges and this kind of, you know, grungy shade and the the oranges, both matte and shimmer, they lend to be a little bit more neutral, or maybe it's just my fault because I'm not as creative as BattyBean here on YouTube. It could also be that, but just something I've noticed. Still very pretty. It's blending out nicely. I think it's definitely super like light compared to the first shade I put down. So it's not like a seamless blend, but I did want a little bit of that cut to remain, so it could almost act as like a lazy man's cut crease, so I don't have to cut it out myself. It can just have a little bit of shadowing from that deep dark color. So at this point, now I'm gonna switch over and let's grab another little brush like that, a little blending brush, and we're just gonna go into that Losers Club, this one here, and blend that in on top of this shade out here and see how that looks. I think this shade is an interesting choice with the palette because it definitely can lend itself to be a little orange, but as I'm playing with it, especially depending on what I pair it with, it can definitely look just like a nice warm tone brown, like nothing too crazy out there, but it's definitely a pretty color. I think in the promo pictures I thought this would be a lot more of an intense type of orange. So I guess that's good that it's not like such a true orange, since the shimmers are more of like that orangey shade. This is just kind of like a warm brown, almost like a peach. I don't even know how to describe it. I wouldn't really say first off the bat when I blend it out that's like, oh yeah, that's an orange. I don't know, it's more of like a peachy tone, I think. I'm gonna take this underneath here, more on the tip of this, and then I'm gonna take it right under here to soften this out like so, and then I'm just gonna spend some time blending it into here. Probably should use a more detailed brush to really blend the edges of this darker shade out. Let me go ahead and do that so we're not here all day. Something like a little pencil brush. I'm gonna pick up that same shade, Losers Club. I just feel like when I take a more focused brush, I can go back and forth between the two shades I'm trying to blend together, and it just takes a lot less time. I just dipped into that dark shade, The Wicked. Now I'm going back into Losers Club. And like there, I feel like that looks pretty nice and seamless, or at least as seamless as I was going for. And I didn't have to spend as long as when I'm taking a more bigger fluffy brush like this and blending. So now I'm just gonna go back to that big fluffy brush, or bigger fluffy brush. Just get the very edges. Yeah, just like that. It's a pretty shade. It's a pretty color combination. I kind of regret not putting the green in there, but it could just be because I'm Katie and I always regret when I don't put green in a look. But that's okay. Okay, and then for the lid shades, like I said, I really want this all over, and then I think if it's too dark and not popping enough, I'll just take this just in the crease, again, just to make that lid shade pop. And I'm curious to see how those two shades are gonna kind of mesh together, because both of them are kind of like multi-chrome-ish. Like this is definitely a multi-chrome, and the lighter one, Ghoulish, I feel like is a bit of a multi-chrome. Maybe it's just more of a duochrome, like a iridescent duochrome since it's so light, but like this one definitely shifts. I forget what the shifts are or how much of a multi-chrome, how many shifts it has, but I definitely see like purple and gold. Really, really pretty. I wonder if you guys can see it very well on camera. I feel like I don't have the right lighting and angles set up to really capture multi-chromes, but it's very pretty in person because it's such a subtle type of multi-chrome that you don't really see unless you are moving around and whatnot. I'll be so curious to see when I edit this if you guys can see the shift, but it's a very pretty shift in person. Okay, I'm just gonna clean off that same brush with a little like color switch thingy, and then I am actually going to spray this. I wanna see if spritzing it will help it pop a little bit more, but now I'm gonna go into that shade Ghoulish, and we're just going to cut right into it, because kind of like as I was saying, I feel like doing this dark shade with such dark colors, I mean, it's a pretty look, very grungy, but you guys know I like my inner corner to pop a little bit, or like my cut crease to pop. So I'm just gonna take this right on top, a little bit wet, because I feel like that'll make it easier to transfer and really pop as well. And then we're just gonna go and stick really close to my cut crease, not bringing it too far. So I really need to like put this just on the tip and do it just like that, I think. What do we think? Let me bring this down a little bit. I feel like I got the angle wrong on my cut crease, which is my own fault, but I think that is a little bit better. I don't know. I feel like I messed up somehow with the angle, but I don't know, not too bad. Now I'm just gonna take it and feather it inward just a touch because I don't want to leave it a harsh line. Like that. I think it definitely helped it pop more. I don't know if I like it. Let me look. It definitely helped it pop a little bit more, but still it's so dark and grungy. I guess I'm just used to more lightness and brightness, and not lightness and brightness, but I'm used to my, like, I guess preference when it comes to eye looks is more of a differentiation and like a drastic kind of pop between what I put on my lid and what's in my inner crease. And I feel like with all these tones that I paired together, they're kind of all blending together a little bit. I think that's what I'm not like used to, I guess you could say. But it's still very pretty. Definitely wetting it helps it go on super easy. I mean, this shade was super easy to go on anyway. Just throwing it out there. I didn't have any issues when I used this on my lid. It's very pretty, but wetting it definitely helps make that a little bit easier. So blending it down, then I'm just gonna flip this brush over, lightly clean it off, and I'll flip it over and go back into that black flame, that purple multichrome. And I'm just gonna touch it back and forth like I always do when I'm blending shades together. I feel like I go back and forth a lot until I'm happy with how it looks. I do have a little bit of fallout. That all pretty much wipes away. Most of it I feel like was that matte shade. A little bit was that multichrome, but it all blended away. No complaints there. I just dropped my phone, oh well. So let's go ahead and finish out my lower lash line. So I'm gonna take that same brush that I used. Actually, let me go with this pencil brush. This brush that I used to kind of do that detail blending, and I'm gonna go into Wicked again. And this time I wanna do a pop of green. Maybe just because I need a pop of something in this look, and I like a good green, but we're gonna make it pop with that green blending on top of this shade. And then we're gonna go into, I'm gonna just clean this brush off real quick. This little A502 from BK Beauty. It's a part of the Hot and Flashy collab. Really nice little blending brush. That's good for like you know, diffused blending brush, kind of like a bigger, smaller blending brush. Like it's not super detailed and dense. It's definitely nice and fluffy, but it's smaller. So I like it better than like a large, fluffy blending brush. I just feel like it works really well to not go overboard in blending an area, but to not be too intense that it just like lays all the color down too much. Just like that. And I think I'm gonna go with no, you know, look at me, I'm not gonna put a wing on, so that's something different. Let me go ahead and put on my inner corner highlight. I'm just gonna take Ghoulish again, that inner corner shade. So I'm just gonna pop that, more of that into here, and just blend out. This shade is so beautiful and blinding. It's beautiful kind of like all over the lid shade, or especially as an inner corner highlight, like stunning. The formula of their shimmers are very nice, very smooth, easy to pick up, lots of sparkle to it, very easy to apply. You guys know I like my shimmers to be easy to apply, and all the shimmers, and I've tried all of them at this point, so smooth to pick up, effortless to pick up on a brush, and they just apply so nicely. And this one specifically is just a fantastic inner corner highlight because it's so beautiful, blinding, easy. It's gorgeous. Okay, so at this point I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna bring the black a little bit closer here, since I'm not gonna be putting on a wing liner, just to make sure it all kind of connects seamlessly. Finish out this side, and then we can, oh, put on mascara too, can't forget mascara. But then I can zoom out, show you guys the final look, and we're gonna continue on with the other tutorials that I did. Again, it's just gonna be music overlay, but then we can meet back here at the end, or not back here, but we can zoom back out and I can give you guys my review on the BattyBean and Shroud Hallobean palette. Alright, so those are all 3 looks that I've created with the Hallobean palette so far. And you guys know I'm going to continue playing with this a couple more times before my final review that I include in my next Poppalooza. But I was super excited to be able to play with it 3 times before doing this video, so I'm able to give you guys more than a first impression. I can give you guys my actual review for this palette. So what do I think about this palette? Let's go ahead and just dive right in. I think the quality of this palette is fantastic. If you are new to Shroud or never tried them, I can definitely say that their mattes are very nice and easy to use. They're very pigmented. This palette specifically I feel like is a little bit more, some of the shadows are a little bit more dry to the touch. However, even though they feel dry, they pick up and they're super pigmented. So there's nothing wrong with the pigmentation and the ability to pick up on a brush. They blend really nicely together, which I was very happy to see that they're easy to work with blending together, because you got 2 very dark colors in here with a lot of very light colors. So I was a little curious how much blending I would have to do to be able to mesh them all together. But as you guys saw through the looks, it was very easy to get that blend and get that very seamless transition from really dark to really light. And then the shimmers are beautiful. I definitely feel like they've, not that there was anything wrong with their previous palettes, but I feel like this is a little bit of a step up in their formula. There's something about it. Like, I remember talking about this palette, was this 2 years ago again? I can't remember when this came out. 2020 I think it was. Maybe it was 2019 actually. I can't remember. But anyway, I love the formula in here when it came to matte and shimmers. But the shimmers in here, there's something just a little bit nicer, more smoother, more intense, more pigmented. Definitely maybe more sparkly. Maybe that's the biggest thing. These shades are very like shimmery and shiny, but these shades, there's like so much sparkle in them, especially these 2 shades have a ton of sparkle in them. But regardless whether there's improvement or not, or maybe it's just been so long since I've tried them, the shimmers in here are definitely fantastic, beautiful. I absolutely love them. Very beautiful. 2 of them, or this one specifically, is a multi-chrome, and I think this is like a multi-chrome, or at least like an iridescent duochrome at the very least, because it definitely is beautiful. Kind of shifts or takes on, you know, whatever you pair it with, that type of shade. Absolutely beautiful. And then these 2 up here are just beautiful, gorgeous shimmers. This orange is definitely my favorite. So quality wise for this palette, I have 0 complaints when it comes to how the shimmers and mattes perform. Switching over, let's talk about the color story. Now, again, this is totally me and my preferences. Obviously, BattyBean put the colors that she wanted in this palette, so take my thoughts with a grain of salt and just keep that in mind. But I'm not as crazy about this color story as I was with her original collab. There's something so unique and special, and I don't know, just something different about her first collab that when I picked it up and bought it, I definitely didn't have anything like this in my collection. And even now thinking about it, I don't think I have many, if any, palettes that really resemble and like dupe this palette. It was just such a unique color story. However, even with it being so unique, it blended together and worked together so beautifully. I created so many unique type of looks that anytime I see it, I'm always like, oh yeah, that came from It's Freakin Bats, because it's just so noticeable with the colors she paired together that whenever you created looks, they were very distinct. With this palette, I feel like as I was using it, I was kind of like, it was a little bit more neutral leaning, or just like kind of all one, how do you say this? Not kind of like I was saying through the talk through, they don't pop as much as I typically like my looks to pop. I like to put something, you know, different in my inner corner, and then make sure whatever I put on my lid is very different from that inner corner, so it pops and stands out. Whereas with these shades, specifically the ones she put together, especially if you're kind of mixing it up and playing different ways, trying to create different looks, I feel like it was a bit of a struggle to figure out how to make the looks that I created out of this palette pop more. And I think the best way to describe this palette is it has more of a grunge look to all of the like eye looks that you do. It's just a little bit more grunge and a kind of that messy look instead of that kind of distinct type of different color pop look. Does that even make sense? I don't even know if I'm explaining this well, but overall, like, it's a really nice palette. I think it's very beautiful. It definitely creates really pretty looks, but it doesn't stand out in my mind and capture my heart like all the looks that I do. It doesn't quite capture my heart in the same way that the original It's Freakin Bats palette did. And also too, if we're getting really nitpicky here, I feel like these 2 shades, you know, yes, they're different, but they're both so very deep. It kind of seems a little redundant to have them both in the same little 9-pan palette, as well as the 2 oranges. I do understand, like, you know, she even said she had to have 2 oranges. They are different. I can totally see that. But I feel like, you know, if I kind of want this look to the palette, if I wanted to do these 2 oranges on the lid, I could just do this orange with this shade here, kind of blend it and get the same look. I understand this has more purple to it, but you know what I mean. I don't know. I feel like Woodsboro is a little bit like unnecessary, or you could even put this all over the lid and then kind of take Loser Club over it and kind of blend it in to get this more of a deeper, kind of dirtier toned orange. I don't know. I just felt like it was a little bit repetitive or unnecessary to have both of these oranges in there along with both of the darker colors, because whenever I was going to create looks, it was kind of like, okay, what can I do that's different? I've already played with the orange. I've already played with those darker tones. What else is there to play with? And it was kind of like, just, you know, these three down here, or, you know, the pop of the multi-chrome, that type of thing. So color story wise, I felt like it was a little bit more more restrictive or just not as creative, and it didn't stand out as much to me as her original one did, but it is super pretty. And if you're someone who's more into those neutral colors, you don't want anything too, you know, colorful and out there like this one might have been, I definitely think you'll enjoy this palette more because you can really get those very kind of simple, neutral, everyday, very easy type of eye looks with this, like, you know, a little bit, one of these shades on the darker corner, one of these shades thrown in your crease, and then one of them popped on the lid. Very easy, very, nothing too colorful, nothing too bold, nothing too out there. And also if you're into more of the grungy type of looks, I definitely think this, you know, this palette will get you there. I feel like today's look is very, very grungy for me and very dark, especially with the dark lid and whatnot. Overall, a very nice color story. It's just that I don't think it's going to capture my heart in the same way that the original It's Freakin' Bats palette did. Like I said, this got #1 from 2020. What was it, 2020? I don't know. This got the #1 palette from the year when I reviewed it because it impressed me so much, and I love the color story, love the formula. It was just such a unique palette. Whereas this one, I think I will enjoy it and I will love the looks that I get out of it, but I don't know if it's going to capture my heart and trump so many of the other palettes that I've tried this year. I think that's what I'm trying to get out with this review. It's a very nice palette, but I can't say it's captured my heart in the same way that the It's Freakin' Bats palette did. I definitely want to continue and try these two together because I feel like they definitely will complement each other when you're just kind of looking at the two. And I know BattyBean even mentioned that they'll pair really well together. So I definitely want to try a couple looks pairing them together to see how I like it, and maybe I'll even like it even more and whatnot. So I'll definitely try that once or twice before I do my final review. So maybe my thoughts on this palette will change as I'm able to pair these together and create more looks that pop and stand out and whatnot, being able to combine these instead of just having a little 9-pan palette to have like an 18-pan palette, you know what I mean? So if you want to see the looks that I create using both of these, check out my Instagram, LadyKatie92. I'll be putting the tutorials over there if you want to see them. But yeah, I'm excited to see how they pair together. But overall for this video, since I'm just kind of focusing on the Hallobean palette in my review, I figured I could just give you guys my review, and you can stay tuned for the palette palooza and see if my thoughts changed as I use it with the It's Freakin' Bats. But overall, a really nice palette. If you like the color story, I don't think there are any issues that you're going to find with the quality, because quality of Shroud Cosmetics has always been fantastic, and this palette is no exception. It is fantastic quality. So that is going to be my review for the Hallobean palette. I didn't say in the beginning, I always forget. I'm so sorry, BattyBean, but huge congratulations to BattyBean on this palette. Super excited to see her get another chance to collaborate with Shroud Cosmetics, and she did a great job once again. It is a very nice color story, very pretty, and definitely very her. So congratulations, BattyBean. But with that said, that is going to do it for my review, my 3 looks of this palette. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it helpful, or if you guys were just wanting inspiration to see the type of looks that I was able to get with the Hallobean palette, hopefully that was helpful as well. And yeah, that's going to do it for me for this video. Thank you guys so very much for watching. As always, I really do appreciate it. And as I just said, you can follow me over on Instagram at LadyKatie92 over there if you want to see reels, up close eye pictures, all that sort of thing. You want to see tutorials with these two, check me out over there. But yeah, with all that said, that is going to do it for me, and I'll see you guys very soon in my next video. Bye guys.